From the King George's Estates in downtown Harrison, New Jersey, good Monday evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Observer Live right here on Facebook.com. Kevin Canessa here with you for the next couple of minutes, and to all of our regulars, I welcome you back to the program. And to anybody who may be here for the first time, we welcome you to the program for the first time as well. Theme to Criminal Minds. It was the song that I would normally play whenever I did a show many years ago. I used to have an internet-based TV show, and that was how I started things off. And if you're wondering what the King George's Estates were, I lived in Fords, New Jersey on King George's Post Road, and Sid Rosenberg, who I think some of you know, and I was on his show a couple of months ago, used to call where I was calling from, and whenever I would join him on his airwaves, the King George's Estate. So something I just brought back. And before I get started, I just want you to know, since it's a holiday today, I'm broadcasting from home, and I have a couple of items on the desk that I keep on the desk all the time, and I'll just explain them briefly, because I don't want you to think that they're necessarily endorsements of the Observer Live, but they are here nonetheless. This is a Kearney Police Department tumbler, and it keeps things hot and cold for 12 to 24 hours. That was given to me as a gift by Sergeant Adriano Marks of the Community-Oriented Police Unit. This is a bobblehead doll of Father Tony Azzardo, a Jesuit priest who just retired recently from St. Peter's Prep. Father Tony was the chaplain when I was a student there, and he's a great human being, and they did this to raise money for the poor and hungry in Jersey City. So I bought this bobblehead doll not too long ago. I don't really have much to say about this, and I think you can probably understand why. And this is a replica path train that Ron Lear gave to me a year ago, or just about a year ago, when one of the Harrison path stations were reopened and rededicated. So excuse me for a minute. So I just wanted to give you an idea of what that stuff was. None of this is an endorsement of the program, but there's things that I really treasure and enjoy very much. Now, this broadcast is brought to you by Rodgers Crab House in Seaside Park, New Jersey. They're located at 2207 Central Avenue in Seaside Park. You can reach them by logging on to www.bumrodgerstavern.com or by calling 732-830-2770. Now, if you're in the Seaside Park area, I know it's Labor Day weekend and, you know, the summer's coming to a close. It's September. But if you're ever in the Seaside Park area, I hope you'll check out Rodgers Crab House. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks, but it's the God's honest truth. It's one of the best seafood places you'll ever go, whether it's in New Jersey, New England, anywhere in the world. They have a fantastic menu. When you go in, if you want to sit outside, they have an outdoor seating area. And not only can you sit outside, so can your dogs. And they have a menu just for your dogs. So doesn't matter whether it's seafood you like, if it's regular food you like, you gotta stop by Rodgers Crab House in Seaside Park. Even if you're just in the general vicinity, it'll be worth the trip. If you happen to pop in, let your server know that you saw this on the Observer Live, and your entire table will be entitled to a free appetizer. And it's only at Rodgers Crab House in Seaside Park, New Jersey. Now, before we get into this week's newspaper, I want to bring to your attention something that I had done a little brief live thing about on Friday night. Some of you will recognize this person right away. That's Robert Osborne. He's a deputy chief in the Kearney Fire Department. Ozzy just went down to Florida with New Jersey Task Force 1, and as of right now, he is stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, and the members of New Jersey Task Force 1, it's based on FEMA. FEMA is in charge of the whole operation, and they're sitting right now in Jacksonville at a hotel, and they're waiting for instructions on what to do next where it comes to Hurricane Dorian. Now, the weather report, depending on who you listen to, some models have the storm going out to sea or turning to the east. Others have it hitting a direct path on the Treasure Coast, and It just seems to be up in the air right now because the storm has slowed down so much to 1 mile an hour of movement. The Bahamas is just absolutely getting slammed right now. So Ozzy and New Jersey Task Force 1, which is a group of first responders who volunteer their time to go to natural disasters and help with the rescue operations, is sort of in a wait-and-see mode because they simply don't know what path Dorian is going to take. But Ozzy is safe. He and his colleagues are all doing well. And he wanted me to thank each and every one of you for all of the well wishes that you sent to him on Friday or on social media. And he wants his beautiful wife, Judy, and children to know that he misses them, he loves them, and we'll see them all soon. So, I had asked if maybe Ozzy could come on, but I didn't really give it much thought that in order to do anything with the media, it has to go through FEMA. And that's a laborious process, as you could probably imagine, anything to do with the federal government. So I figured I would bring you this word from Ozzy on my own. It was great to hear his voice today. Everybody is safe so far, and God willing, if this storm gets the hell out of the way and goes out to the Atlantic Ocean and turns east, as some of these models have forecasted, hopefully then Ozzy and the members of NJTF1 will not in any way be put in harm's way. So there's that from Ozzy. Now, the front page of this week's edition of The Observer, which is dated September 4th, if you can imagine that, how quickly this summer went. The main story, running to remember, is the is a front page photo of a 5K run that involved a bunch of runners in memory of Staff Sergeant Jorge Oliveira. Mr. Oliveira was a regular at the VFW in Kearney and sadly died in the line of duty in Afghanistan in 2011. And a couple of years back, Jennifer Long, the commander of the VFW post, wanted to come up with something to remember him and to honor his memory because he was a very well-liked and very well-loved member of the VFW community. And so they started this annual 5K run, which takes place every August. And we have some great photos from our photographer, Teddy Lopez, who was there, and you'll see that, and a little bit of a story later on in the paper about who Jorge Oliveira was, George Oliveira, depending on your preference. I'm not sure how he pronounced his name, but a very, very sad story from 2011 when he died in Afghanistan. But his memory lives on thanks to this 5K walk and run that takes place on Belgrove Drive each and every year. Now, on the bottom of this week's front page, a really aggravating and annoying situation in Kearney that continues to blow the mind. Folks, I want you to know that in the month of August, there were 2 readings of hydrogen sulfide at the Keegan landfill that went over 1,000 parts per billion. And there's something you need to know if you don't already, but I'm sure for most of you this number is ingrained in your memory. The maximum allowable amount of hydrogen sulfide that is getting fined by the NJDEP is 30 parts per billion. 30. And there have been 2 readings over 1,000. That's 34 and 37 times the maximum allowable amount of hydrogen sulfide, if you can imagine that. And what's perhaps most infuriating about this is that any time the readings go over 30 parts per billion, the NJDEP is supposed to fine the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority. Well, lo and behold, there hasn't been a single fine in the month of August. We'll see what happens there. But our story recaps some of the top readings. There were others that were also extremely high in the hundreds and hundreds of parts per billion. You judge for yourself whether this is a health crisis. And as all of this is happening, still no word from Governor Murphy. Mayor Santos has tried and tried to get in touch with the governor. The governor has refused to meet with Mayor Santos, and he has, rightfully so, been passing out bottles of water in Newark. Our friends in Newark and, of course, Belleville and Nutley have this crisis of their own on their hands about lead-filled water. But the governor still refuses to acknowledge that there's a health crisis here in West Hudson as he continues to ignore the people of Kearney and the mayor of Kearney. So can you just imagine that Governor Murphy has still not said yet word one to our mayor, who has tried ad nauseum to get in touch with him. It's very, very disgusting. You'll see that story on page 1, and it moves to 19. As we move along this week's edition of The Observer, we have a great little story about a youngster whose picture will appear in Times Square later on this month. She is from, let's see, I think her last name is Santos, Nicole Santos. She's a young girl who has Down syndrome. She will be featured as part of a Down syndrome Foundation awareness program in Manhattan, in Times Square, and this year the picture will include her and her 2 brothers. So I hope you'll check that out. It's a great story, and Nicole's parents have a support group for those who deal with, those who have a child who has Down syndrome here in Kearney. So I hope you'll check that out. As many of you know already by now, the Red Bulls have showed solidarity with the towns of West Hudson, with the odors that have been permeating now Red Bulls games at Red Bull Arena in Harrison. They released a statement through their social media pages, did the Red Bulls. And in fact, we were told by Michael Batista, who was covering the game as a member of the media, that at a recent game, the fans were chanting something derogatory about the smell during the game. So it's reached epic proportions now, in so much as if the fans of the Red Bulls are getting disgusted by it, the team got involved, and they will fully support the towns of Kearney and Harrison in our fight to get this get this landfill closed once and for all and forever and capped. Now, as we move along, most of you have heard of the West Hudson Arts and Theater Company, WAT, as it is its acronym says. They have a new location. They have moved to Grace United Methodist Church on Kearney Avenue at 380 Kearney Avenue, bringing them much more visibility, being in the main thoroughfare of the town. And Jerry Facito, the founder and the president of WAT, made this happen. He's very excited because it will also allow people to offer a lot more opportunities in their education program. They're going to be expanding to have a program as well for high school kids. So check that out when you get a chance. Now, if you want, you can follow along with me by going to www.theobserver.com, where there's an early e-edition available. It's $2.50. One of the purposes of putting that out early is that if you have a need for an apartment, or if you're looking for a job or anything of that nature, you get a head start on the classifieds as well. And of course, you can always follow along with me here too as we go through the news each day, each Monday. So check that out at www.theobserver.com, a lot earlier than you would normally get it on Tuesday when the actual physical newspaper hits the stands. A group that has been around for a long time, for General Kearney, and to keep Kearney's history alive and in the forefront, has renovated the General Kearney statue at the Kearney Post Office on Midland Avenue, and also the Civil War soldier in front of the VFW on Veterans Row, Belgrove Drive. So wait till you see these before and after pictures. They did a fantastic job. Those statues are phenomenal. They always have been, but they, I guess, over time, metal or whatever the substance they're made of starts to wear away. They completely restored these 2 statues, and they look phenomenal. So we have before and after pictures, and I thank Christine Jablonski for sending this our way so we knew what was going on. Page 6 this week, the editorial that I wrote this week on behalf of The Observer is entitled, Governor Blows Off Kearney Yet Again by Hosting Kearney Portal Bridge Briefing in Secaucus. Now, we didn't actually write a story about this, but of course there's been a lot of discussion of the need to replace the train bridge out in South Kearney because it's 108 years old. But the coward that he is, Governor Phil Murphy, when it was time to encourage the federal government to fund the replacement or rebuilding of the Portal Bridge out in South Kearney, decided in his infinite wisdom to have the meeting in Secaucus at the Frank Lautenberg train station in the middle of basically nowhere. Part of the reason, I'm sure, is because he's afraid to step foot in Kearney. He knows he would have to face the music, and it's just a shame that he had to do this. Another chance to reach out to the people of Kearney about something going on in our town, but no, he decides to have this press briefing in Sea Caucus at the Lautenberg station. So yet another example of this governor completely blowing off what we're doing here in the town of Kearney. Karen Zodick has her blotter this week, as she often does. We also have tips for going back to school with big backpacks. You know, this was something that really bothered our Lisa Fiorenzo, and I've noticed it a lot over the last couple of years, that some kids are walking around with backpacks that have got to weigh more than they do for whatever reason. So Hackensack University Medical Center offers tips on the best way to prepare children who have to use these backpacks with books and all these other materials that could certainly hurt a child's back itself. So take a look at that, especially if you are a parent, and of course, especially if you are a student heading back to school in the next couple of days. Now, we also have a separate story, a separate crime story about 12 locals who were arrested in a massive Essex County drug bust. It was a narcotics bust a couple of weeks ago, and it just so happens that 12 of the 31 people who were arrested are from Kearney or Harrison, and one of the gentlemen arrested is from Belleville. So you can check that out on page number 9 when you get a chance. On page 10, Congressman Bill Pascrell's office contacted us the other day and let us know that the Sea Caucus Fire Department would be getting a new fireboat, and that the one good thing about this fireboat, that is, even though it is going to be operated by and stored in Sea Caucus, a lot of Sea Caucus in the news this week, isn't it? This will be open and usable at any time by the Kearney Fire Department on any of the two rivers, whether it's the Hackensack River or the Passaic River, whenever it's needed. Steve Dill, the chief of the Kearney Fire Department, or whoever's in charge at that time, can call the Sea Caucus folks and say, we need the boat, and it's going to come. There doesn't involve any taxpayer money for the township, for Kearney, and the good thing is that's completely operated by the guys in Sea Caucus, so manpower will be provided to the Kearney Fire Department from Sea Caucus at any point in time when it's needed. And you may recall that a boat like that was needed when there was the Alden Leeds fire a couple of months ago down in South Kearney. So this is a nice addition to the firefighting fleet in Hudson County, and a lot of the credit goes to Congressman Bill Pascrell, who secured a federal grant for the funding for this boat. And if anybody doesn't know Congressman Pascrell, he really does a lot of work when it comes to firefighting. He's on the firefighting committee in Congress, and he always seems to be pouring taxpayer money back into fire departments in North Jersey. And this is just another example of that. So way to go, Congressman Bill Pascrell. In sports, Jim Haig, our illustrious sports writer, has a feature on the Lyndhurst football program and also the Harrison football program. So I hope you'll check those two major features out. And he's also got a feature on the Maroon Raiders, who are going at it with an interim football coach this year, Vic. So check that out as well. As I just move along, don't forget that there are a couple of obituaries in this week's edition. If there were any deaths that took place, we put this paper together on Friday of last weekend because of the holiday, so I apologize that there may be some things that are a little bit late. So check that out. Pages 20, 21, and 22 include this week's classifieds. There are a score of employment opportunities, a ton of rentals: Kearney, Harrison, Lyndhurst, North Newark, North Arlington, you name it. And there's also roommate opportunities and room share opportunities. So check that out in this week's edition of The Observer. And of course, as we do every week, this week's edition concludes with a full-page ad from the folks at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, Kosha Realty. Now, that was a breathful, to say the least. Now, we're back in the office on Tuesday, September 3rd. So if you need to get a classified that you might have missed, we can put it online for you. Just give us a call at 201-991-1600 or pop in the office at 39 Sealy Avenue in Kearney. We'll be happy to take care of that for you. And, of course, as is always the case, if anything happens during the course of this week, I will join you with live breaking news and a midweek recap on Wednesday, as we've been tending to do over the last couple of weeks. And I hope to have by then an update on how everything is going in South Florida with Deputy Chief Robert Ozzy Osborne. So that'll do it for this week. To all of our regulars, again, I thank you for logging on and joining us. To anybody who may be here for the first time, hope you come back. Hope you enjoyed what you see. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, everybody. And we'll see you back here again very, very soon. Take care.